The global AI market is projected to reach $757 billion in 2025, driven by enterprise adoption and big tech investments. Virtualization will hit nearly $11 billion with strong demand from large enterprises, while vLLM emerges as a key efficiency layer to deploying large language models. My name is Paul Nashawaty. I'm the practice lead for the app dev practice at theCUBE Research. I'm joined by Stu today. Stu, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being on. And we're here to talk about the industry trends related to the upcoming Red Hat Summit 2025 event and focus on the key themes of AI, vLLMs, and virtualization. So Stu, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and how we see these trends?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. So Stu Miniman, I'm a senior director at Red Hat. I'm in what we call the hybrid platforms business unit, which includes it's OpenShift, virtualization, some of the surrounding technologies like platform engineering and the like. And of course, Paul, like all of us these days, AI is something that we are all paying attention to. Back when I was an analyst, you'd always look at some of those trends and be like, hey, is it too much hype? Is this real? AI absolutely is one of those once in a generation technologies that we are all getting involved with, and really takes me back to things like mobile adoption and the internet, because it's not just something that those of us in the tech industry look at, but it affects everyone's day-to-day life. So, I talk to my friends, I talk to my family, I talk to my kids about this kind of stuff. Not just something like cloud computing, which ran in the background, but didn't directly impact what we were all talking about, even if it did change, the IT industry greatly and did impact, the rest of the world. They just might not have understood it completely.
Totally, Stu. I mean, and it's kind of amazing. That's why we do these events of these podcasts and such, so we kind of like rise above the noise. Like there's so much to talk about. And what I'm seeing at Red Hat Summit 2025 is we see some key announcements centered around software supply chain, advancing AI lifecycle safety, and strengthening hybrid cloud infrastructure. So you mentioned the cloud and you mentioned these pieces, but they definitely have an impact to the AI strategies. The Red Hat's trusted software supply chain framework, it really helps with reducing those threats and introducing AI security strategies for modeling, build, deployments, and runtime, which aligns nicely to the app dev practice. So that's why I thought this conversation would be interesting. And also, I find that some of the trends that we're seeing around open source, information that's coming out with Instruct Lab is another area for AI development, and Red Hat Enterprise Linux 10 with image mode, it really helps with a promising, easier deployments and development for cloud native environments. So I think there's a lot here to discuss. Security enhancements and zero trust for post-quantum cryptography and confidential computing is another big area that I see as a trend that's hitting the market. And Ansible Fest, I think, is going to help with a lot of the hands-on automation, OpenShift, and cloud operations. So Stu, when we look at all of these things, right, we see that there's a lot there. I felt like there was a little bit of a Red Hat commercial there, but I do think that a lot of that has to do with the trends, right? And we see that there's major highlights that attendees can expect from from the summit that really impact these industry trends is really important. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So Paul, as you said, you covered a lot there. And Red Hat Summit, there's a lot, depending on what you're really interested in digging into. So, at a high level, we've been talking about the open hybrid cloud for over a decade, and that still is the primary message. Open source is the default for software development these days. And you mentioned a lot about security. Open source and security go hand in hand. The transparency that we can give with open source, the ecosystem and community that stands around things means that if there is any security issue happening, that we can quickly understand it, resolve it, and get it into our product line. From a Linux standpoint, one of the reasons Red Hat is the leader in enterprise Linux and for paid Linux is that customers know I am protected more using these solutions, and if a CVE or something comes up, we are going to backport that fix, make it easier for me to get it into my environment, because well, you know this from an enterprise standpoint. If I've got to upgrade, if I've got to make significant changes, that's challenging to do, and I want to be able to just keep what I'm doing as long as possible, but make sure security is taken care of. At Red Hat, for a long time, we've had our three primary products. Red Hat Enterprise Linux. You talked about we're going to have RHEL 10, the big launch. Like clockwork, every 3 years we do it. OpenShift, the product that I'm part of, IBM shared at its last earnings were over $1.5 billion and still growing at north of 25%. And Ansible, automation is the default for everything I need to do in this modern era. We added our fourth platform just in this last year, and that's AI. And it's not just that AI is off in the corner and we've got smart people building some things there. It's AI fits across all of our product line. RHEL, OpenShift, Ansible, lots that we're going to be talking about how AI fits into it. You mentioned things like InstructLab, which came out of IBM Research in partnership with Red Hat. And we had the Neural Magic acquisition, which just closed a few months ago, which has a leading contributor to the vLLM open source project, which I want to be able to do models, in more efficient way, more securely and faster. vLLM really is could become the Linux of the AI model world. Every hardware supplier, that's NVIDIA and everyone else in that space, and all of the models all make sure that they have integration with vLLM before they release their next version. So, Paul, lots of excitement, lots to dig in on. When I look at the attendees, I've been going to Red Hat Summit for over a decade. Half of that as an analyst and half of that as a Red Hatter now. Whether you want to be in hands-on labs, whether you want to go to the big keynotes, whether you want to sit down with your peers, there's a lot going on to attend in those few days that we have in Boston.
Yeah, Stu, it's always a pleasure talking to you because it makes my job easy. As an analyst, I look at the trends, what's happening in the market, and you kind of have the answers, right? Which is awesome because a lot of the organizations that I talk to are looking for what is the path to get to where they are today and where they need to go. A lot in the app dev practice that I deal with is kind of the conversation of past, present, and future, right? And applications that are shifting and what they're doing with applications. And you kind of touched on the product sets that do it, but really from a technology or trending perspective, we did talk about AI, and there's a lot. Obviously, everything's involved with AI these days, whether it's an enabler or it's an actual product to use for analytics and such. It's going to be part of your solution. But I like to talk a little bit and dive into some of the details here, right, and the trends that we're seeing. So, Stu, when we look at shifting the conversation a little bit to VMs and containers, okay, I like to talk a little bit about this because 58% of organizations are migrating workloads from VMs to containers, and 65% are planning to do so in the next 2 years, according to our research, right? So, and this is fueled by cost savings, operational efficiencies, and the need to modernize workloads like AI and analytics, right? And, the words we tend to hear with a lot of the conversation is operational efficiencies, cost savings, right? These are the same words that come up over and over and over again. But there's a lot of truth to that when you're looking at the scalability of the tech stack that you're using. So maybe if you could share with the audience here some examples of customer migrations that you're seeing in this space, because I know that you and I have had some briefings and had some conversations about this. So it's pretty exciting, actually.
Yeah, so Paul, it's an interesting topic and one that changed significantly over the last 2 years. We're over a decade with OpenShift itself, and that adoption of containerization and the cloud native architectures absolutely is driving a lot of innovation, a lot of growth for companies around the globe, and not just from a Red Hat standpoint. It is really the default when customers are building in the cloud. And in the data center, gosh, Paul, I feel like I've been having this conversation for 20 years, but what I'm doing in the data center needed to look, act, and feel much more like what the public cloud is. I know your peers on the research side, I used to say it was I was the research side, is cloud isn't a place, it's an operating model. And what does a data center, an edge environment, or the public cloud, can I do the same operational efficiencies across those environments? So we've had plenty of customers that we've helped adopt cloud by moving to the public cloud. Over the last couple of years, we've actually talked a little bit more about the data center. And the two drivers for that has been, number one, the Broadcom acquisition of VMware has had a lot of customers have to rethink or decide, am I going to make a change in the data center? VMware was dominant for well over a decade in that space, and making that change is not something that happens overnight, but we've helped plenty of customers to do that over time. Just in the last IBM earnings, Arvind, the CEO of IBM, was asked about how this has gone, and he shared the stat that over $200 million worth of virtualization revenue was booked last year by Red Hat, and that we had a pipeline over 500 million. So that's significant. We're helping customers that have not dozens of VMs, but some of them hundreds and thousands of VMs, and some of those at Red Hat Summit will share some that have completed and some that are along that multi-year journey that they're going to go on. And the second piece is AI. A lot of the customers that I'm working with, whether they be financial services or government, when they talk about AI, they're putting something in their data center. They want to be able to make sure that their proprietary data and information does not leave their four walls. So they want to train a smaller model locally, make sure that their data is not even potentially going to be shared in a broader resource. So at the core of what we do at Red Hat, everything needs to be secure. And from a virtualization standpoint, we want to make sure that there's low risk in the migration, and of course, keep those mission critical applications running and secure. And from an AI standpoint, security needs to be front and center. So, Paul, I'm excited. I'm a little hesitant to mention specific customer names, but if you come to the show, the keynotes will be broadcast. We've got customers in both AI and virtualization on the main stage, and we've got about 15 virtualization customers in the course catalog. If you just go to red.ht/summit and search for virtualization, you'll find every day a lot of sessions where some big brands in every industry from around the globe that are sharing their piece. And we're super excited because there's been a lot of work over the last 2 years to make sure that these solutions are ready in production, low risk, secure, and can help going forward. So it's been a culmination of a lot of activity. So we're super excited for that.
Yeah, Stu, there's a lot that you just talked about to unpack, and it's definitely interesting. I'm looking forward to the event. Like yourself, I haven't missed it in many years, double-digit years at least. So I'm very excited about it. But one thing I do want to talk about is about 6 years ago when I first started coming out of the vendor world, going into the analyst world, I was talking about cloud, right, and talking about all the different names in front of cloud, right, whether it's hybrid cloud, public cloud, private cloud, whatever cloud, right? And like one of the predictions or one of the things I was saying is like to your point, cloud is not going to be, it's going to be a operating model, right? And it's going to be a thing. And like whether it's core to edge to cloud, what we see exactly to your point, from a modernization perspective, we see in our research that for building net new applications, cloud-based applications, 46% of organizations are using public and private cloud resources to do that. So they're moving off on-prem to the public and private cloud in order to build it. But what's more interesting is 11% is doing this on-prem. Now, even more interesting, I was surprised by this, was in the next 2 years, we asked the question of where you're moving from 2 years. The public and private cloud information is being pulled back, and repatriation is going on-prem. So the analysis here, actually, we see 33% of organizations doing on-prem development of cloud-native applications on-prem. So the kind of analysis here is that there's a burst capacity to another location, another cloud location, building the applications in a location, modernizing their on-prem infrastructure, the data centers on-prem, and then having the ability and the flexibility to move back and forth between the cloud and on-prem, et cetera. So we also see in our research that 20% of organizations say that it's critical that their applications are portable. So, this is the type of thing that you're seeing. And I think from you're spot on, the flexibility. The thing I like about the unified tech stack that Red Hat offers is you can use it on-prem, edge, and in the cloud, and you don't have to change your skill set. That's what's really attractive about it, and you can use it across the board and deliver across those modernization strategies. But with all that said, there's the next layer down, Stu, right? And you kind of touched on this with AI and the vLLMs. We're seeing trends in the market that, that these encapsulation of heritage applications are going into, wherever it's going. Those are being left alone, but they're being treated as a data source, or dare I say an LLM, right? And I'd love to get your perspective specifically around how AI and vLLM integrations, what's happening with your customers, because I think that's an area that's interesting as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting space, Paul. Our partner, parent company also, IBM, is very involved in the data layer of what's going on there. And look at IBM. They still have lots of customers that are running mainframe and have data sources there. From a Red Hat standpoint, as you said, our tech stack, we want to be able to run anywhere. Public cloud, private cloud, the edge, x86, PowerZ, all of those environments. And when it comes to, the AI accelerators, we're working across, lots of solutions, of course, NVIDIA upfront, but, all the alternatives, including from the cloud providers, we're working there. Data, I've got some background on the data side, Paul. It's not something I spend a lot of time on these days. And, most enterprises are a bit fragmented on how they look at this. And if you don't have a good data strategy, you're not going to be able to take care of the AI. So we're absolutely, ourselves working on some of the tooling to be able to streamline things. As you called out, vLLM is going to be able to plug into a lot of environments. But this is also an area that we're going to have to partner very heavily on. So not only IBM, all the, global systems integrators are working on this. We partner with all of the storage providers, and there's a whole lot of new players in the AI space. If you talk about the ecosystem that we had in the cloud native environment, it was usually a joke about the CNCF landscape and how big it was. It actually pales in comparison as to what the AI landscape is. Every day I'm hearing about new companies. I've got a large network, so I'm pretty regularly getting reached out by interesting hardware and software companies that I've known from previous endeavors that they've done. And, Red Hat, we're very open, we're very API focused, and we're involved in so many communities. So there's a lot there, Paul. I don't have a silver bullet answer for you, but it is everything I've read on the data side is, something we've all been saying for a while. If I don't understand my applications and have my data, set a certain way, we'll need to get there. But, structured and unstructured and semi-structured, companies have all of them. I was just listening to a nice segment that, your CEO, Dave Vellante, had with Mark Benioff. And, could Salesforce, be a software hyperscaler? It's an interesting, discussion overall. We feel we've got a good position from a Red Hat standpoint. And of course, open source is going to play an important role in everything we're talking about here.
Yeah, Stu, there's no question. And what I liked about the response is it's almost like a Rubik's Cube, right? You can turn it to the way you need to turn it, and the customer has choice. And that's really what matters here. And as much as a lot of environments say that they're bespoke and they're, very unique, they are, right? And they need to have ways to address their concerns. So, these impacts are definitely going to be, Stu, they're definitely going to be an impact on the global markets. We definitely see what's happening, and changes in the market. But, I know we're kind of coming up to the end of our talk here. And, I'm looking forward to Red Hat Summit. It's going to be awesome. I'd love to get your final thoughts and what are your thoughts around the trends, and what should the audience think about here?
Yeah, so really is an opportunity for a lot of people. I've loved digging into some of the looking forward. Where are some of the career opportunities that people are going to have? There is definitely some concern that people have, and rightfully so. AI will change jobs. When I talk to young people that are studying computer software, it's like, hey, if you think you're going to have a long career just programming, you better understand the AI tools, because if you don't, you could absolutely be out of a job. Paul, you and I have been in this industry long enough. We've seen some of those trends where if you don't jump on the wave, you are going to be buried by it. And AI is one of those that we absolutely need to take a good look on. So when it comes to Red Hat Summit, lots of opportunities to go to hands-on labs around the booth. There's going to be smaller environments. Go to the developer zone, and you can get on some of these new technologies. Lots of your peers to talk to, and yeah, Paul, I mean, I'm super excited, looking forward. I've got a panel I'll be on talking about cloud services. I'll, of course, be around the booths and be talking to a lot of the analysts. And I know theCUBE is going to have a good lineup of not only the Red Hat execs, but some of our partners and customers, because, yeah, it really is just a celebration of the customers and what they do, the innovation that they drive. Pro tip, look out for the Innovation Award winners, because there's some of the customers, I wouldn't say bleeding edge, but, leading edge and doing some really interesting things with the technology and good things that we can learn from everything they're doing. So, yeah, super excited to welcome everybody to Boston, and it'll be a fun time.
Stu, I can't wait. It's going to be great. Thank you for your insights today. Thanks for joining me. This has been awesome. And I want to thank the audience here for tuning in. We appreciate you being part of the AppDevANGLE community. Well, that wraps up this episode, and we'll be back next Wednesday with another conversation driving tools, trends, and talent shaping the future of application development. Whether you're deploying at the edge, building an AI, or modernizing your cloud stack, we've got you covered. And be sure to follow us on social. If you have any thoughts, questions, or you just want to connect, you can always reach me at pauln@siliconangle.com. Until next time, stay curious and stay building. Thanks.